Today's story dives into paranoia, identity, and betrayal. It shows how the ordinary rhythms of life can hide something sinister, and how quickly suspicion can turn into the terrifying realization that your life might already be infiltrated. Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me. The microwave beeped. Twice. I opened it, and there were 2 plates inside. One with my leftover chicken marsala. One with something I didn't make. Something with scrambled eggs, toast, and exactly 5 pieces of bacon, lined up like soldiers. I stood there for a few seconds, just staring. I hadn't cooked that. I didn't even eat breakfast that morning. I was rushing for work and grabbed a protein bar on the way out. So where did the second plate come from? I live alone. At least, I thought I did. I took my food and left the other plate inside, like it might explain itself if I gave it enough time. That was Monday. By Tuesday, the eggs were gone, and the plate was washed and back in the cabinet. I didn't say anything. Who would I even say it to? My wife was on a business trip in Charleston. Her text from the night before said she was exhausted and going to sleep early. She didn't ask about me. She didn't ask if I was okay. She hasn't in a while. So I told myself maybe I was tired. Maybe I cooked and forgot. People do weird things when they're sleep deprived, right? But then came Wednesday night. I found a sock on the bedroom floor. Not mine. Not my size. It was massive. Like Shaquille O'Neal sized. Brown with little pineapples on it. No tags. No holes. And definitely not something I'd ever buy. I asked her about it. Over FaceTime. She laughed. Babe, I got those for you last Christmas. You don't remember? You wore them once and said they made your feet itch. I didn't. Because they didn't exist last Christmas. Not in this house. Not with me. On Thursday, I came home early from work. I was supposed to be in a client meeting, but I faked a migraine and drove straight home. Something in my gut told me I needed to. When I walked in, the house smelled like cologne. Not mine. And there were 2 glasses in the sink. One of them had lipstick. Her lipstick. I walked upstairs expecting what? I don't know. A half-naked stranger? My wife hiding behind the curtains? The bedroom was empty. The shower was wet. And on the nightstand, there was a half-smoked cigar I've never seen before. She doesn't smoke. I don't smoke. The windows were locked. The alarm system was armed. It made no sense. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with a baseball bat and a knife I found in the junk drawer. I wasn't scared. I was confused. Like the world was folding in on itself, and I couldn't find the edge. At 3:12 a.m., I heard a noise upstairs. A footstep. One. Heavy. Deliberate. I crept upstairs, heart pounding so loud I could feel it in my teeth. There was no one there. But the sock was back. Same pineapple pattern. Same spot. Same crease. I picked it up. It was warm. Someone had just worn it. And that's when I realized I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being replaced. I didn't sleep again that night. I stayed on the couch with the lights off, listening to every creak like it was a scream. I had the pineapple sock in my hoodie pocket like some kind of cursed artifact. I don't know why. Maybe I thought holding it would prove I wasn't crazy. By morning, I was half delirious. I poured myself coffee and stared out the window, trying to decide if I should call the police or a therapist. Then I saw him. There was a man, sitting on my back porch, in my chair, drinking from my mug. He was facing away from the house, just watching the tree line like he lived there. No movement, no phone, just stillness, like he'd been there all night and wasn't in a rush to leave. I opened the door slowly and stepped outside. Hey, I said. My voice cracked like I was 13 again. He didn't turn. Can I help you? Nothing. I moved closer, and the air suddenly smelled like burnt cedar and cheap hotel soap. When I got within 5 feet of him, I noticed something worse. He was wearing my sweatshirt, the same gray one I thought I lost last fall. I saw the small bleach stain on the cuff. I even recognized the frayed collar I used to chew when I was nervous. And just as I opened my mouth to demand an explanation, he stood up, still not facing me, still holding the mug. He walked down the steps, into the woods behind our yard, and vanished like he belonged to them. I didn't chase him. I couldn't move. My legs just gave out, and I sat on the porch, staring at the space where he'd been like it might grow answers. When Penny got home that night, yes, she was suddenly home, unannounced, suitcase still in the car, I told her everything. The sock, the food, the guy. She laughed. Hard. Too hard. Curtis, she said, first time I've heard her use my name in weeks. Are you off your meds again? I'm not on meds. I never have been. But the way she said it, it was like she'd practiced that line. Like she expected me to bring it up eventually. Then she walked right past me, into the bedroom, and started unpacking like nothing was wrong. The only thing she said before closing the door, "Oh, I found your gray sweatshirt, by the way. It was in the garage." She was lying. I could feel it like static in the air. That wasn't my sweatshirt anymore. Not after he wore it. And I knew, somehow, deep down, this wasn't going to end with just a confession. It was going to end with something breaking. And I wasn't sure if it would be me or them. The next day, Penny left her laptop open on the kitchen counter. That never happens. She's obsessive about closing things, tabs, drawers, conversations she doesn't want to have. But there it was. Open, glowing, waiting. The universe doesn't hand you moments like that unless it wants you to see something. I wasn't snooping. Not at first. I was just grabbing coffee. But the screen was right there, and a message had popped up in the corner of her screen. "Mason, work Slack, same time tonight? Don't forget the key." Work Slack? Really? I clicked the message. I know, invasion of privacy. But at this point, privacy was a joke. Mine had been broken weeks ago. What I found wasn't a flirty message, or even a thread. It was a private channel. Just two people. Mason and Penny. No emojis. No jokes. Just coded language and files with weird titles like house_diagram_v2, PNG, and exit plan final. PDF. Exit plan. I opened the image. It was a sketch of our house. Not a blueprint, not something from Zillow. This was hand-drawn. Crude, but detailed. Windows. Doorways. Even the weird crack in the upstairs bathroom tile was marked. And in the corner, written in red, "Blind spot starts at 4:40 p.m. I didn't even know what that meant yet, but it made my skin crawl. I closed the laptop and walked into the hallway, where Penny was humming and folding towels like nothing was wrong. I watched her hands move. Automatic, careless, the way you fold clothes when your mind is somewhere else. Or with someone else. I asked her casually, "How's work?" She looked up, blinked too slowly. "Oh, quiet. Same stuff." "Lie." I asked, "Do you still use Slack?" She smiled, but her eyes didn't. "Barely. We're switching to Teams." Another lie. I almost told her then. I almost asked who Mason was. But something in me wanted to see more. I didn't want just suspicion. I wanted the whole ugly truth laid bare. That night, I pretended to sleep on the couch. I heard her unlock the back door at exactly 4:39 p.m. I heard the floorboards creak. Not fast like someone running. Slow. Careful. Like someone returning to a place they've been before. I waited until I couldn't hear her anymore, then crept upstairs. The bedroom door was closed. No lights on. Silence. But something was humming through the walls, like an engine, or a growl too low to be human. I put my ear against the door, and heard a man whisper my name. Not yell. Not call out. Just whisper. "Curtis." And then Penny said something I'll never forget. She laughed, softly, and said, "Don't worry. He still thinks I'm in Charleston." I didn't sleep that night either. Penny claimed she was tired and went to bed right after brushing her teeth, something she hadn't done at home in weeks. I stayed on the couch again, pretending to be asleep while I watched shadows move across the ceiling. At some point, probably around 3 a.m., I got up to get water. I was halfway down the hallway when I stopped in front of the mirror in the guest bathroom. Just a normal mirror. I've looked into it 1,000 times without thinking. But this time, I swear to you, the reflection didn't match. I know how that sounds. I know. But it wasn't just a trick of the light. I moved my hand slowly to scratch my temple, and in the mirror, the motion was delayed. Only by a fraction of a second, maybe half a beat, but it was real. It was off. Then I blinked, and the man in the reflection didn't. He just stared at me with the same tired eyes I've been dragging around for weeks, only emptier. Almost like he was waiting for me to notice. I stumbled back and turned on the light. Suddenly, everything was normal. My face, my clothes, my reflection. It all matched. No delay. No weirdness. Just me. Sweaty, shaky, and barely holding it together. I went back to the kitchen to get that water and found something even worse. The back door was unlocked. Penny never forgets to lock that door. It's the one thing she's religious about, probably because it opens straight into the woods. But there it was, slightly ajar, creaking just enough to let cold air in and whisper across the tile. And right there on the mat, boot prints. One set. Muddy. Fresh. Way too big to be mine. I followed them outside, just far enough to see they led around the side of the house and ended. No trail, no drag, no return prints. Just gone. I didn't tell Penny about the door, or the mirror, or the boots. The next morning, she made me coffee. That alone should have set off alarms, but I drank it anyway, partly out of habit, partly because I didn't want to look suspicious. She smiled more than usual, touched my shoulder gently, like she used to. There was a calmness about her that felt out of place, like someone who had just moved a body and knew no one would ever find it. When she left for yoga, I went back upstairs and opened her closet. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Maybe answers, maybe proof that I hadn't just lost my mind. But I found something I wasn't prepared for. An old shoebox, tucked behind the winter coats. Inside were photos, not printed from a phone, Polaroids. Dozens of them. Some of her, some of him. A man I'd never seen before. Shaved head, scar over one eyebrow, always looking away from the camera. Sometimes they were together. Sometimes he was just watching her sleep. And in every photo, written in red marker on the back, was the same phrase. He doesn't know yet. But I do now. I don't know who he is. I don't know why she's doing this. But I know I was never supposed to find those photos. And I know I'm not safe anymore. I didn't go to work the next day. I told my boss I was sick, which wasn't a lie. I felt like my brain was dissolving in static. I couldn't stop thinking about the photos. The man, his scar, the phrase written on the back of each one like some private joke I wasn't supposed to get. He doesn't know yet. Yeah, I do now. I know something's wrong. But I still didn't know how deep it went. Around noon, the landline rang. We haven't used it in years. I didn't even know it still worked. Penny usually unplugs it because she says the robocalls stress her out. But there it was, ringing like it had something urgent to say. I picked up, said hello. Silence. Then breathing. Deep. Measured. Then a voice. Calm, low, and familiar in a way that made my spine tighten. Curtis, it said, slowly, like it was savoring the syllables. Stop looking. I froze. Who is this? No response. Just the click of the line disconnecting. I stared at the phone for what felt like a full minute, trying to decide whether to call Penny, the cops, or nobody at all. I chose none of the above. Instead, I went upstairs and opened her closet again. But the shoebox was gone. Not moved. Gone. And now, the photos weren't just burned into my memory. They were the only proof I had left. I checked under the bed. Nothing. I pulled out her drawers. Still nothing. But when I opened her makeup bag, buried between her lipstick and mascara, I found something she definitely wasn't supposed to have. A copy of our house key. But it wasn't on one of our keychains. It was zip-tied to a tag labeled M in permanent marker. I stared at it, feeling the cold metal in my palm. That was the moment I realized Mason didn't just visit. He had access. He was invited. And worse, he might already be here, watching, listening, maybe even reading this. I didn't sleep again, but this time it wasn't fear that kept me up. It was planning. I was done being confused. Done pacing around the house like some broken Roomba waiting to hit another wall. If Mason was coming in here like he owned the place, if Penny was letting it happen, if I was the only one still pretending this house was mine, then fine. Let's stop pretending. I was going to catch him. Not just suspect him. Not just hear his voice through the wall, or see his reflection delay in the mirror. I needed to see him with my own eyes, standing in my house, touching my life like it belonged to him. So I left the door unlocked. Not wide open, just barely clicked shut, like someone forgetful had come home with too many grocery bags and never checked it again. Then I turned off all the lights, dragged a chair into the hallway closet facing the front door, and waited with my phone in one hand and the house key I'd found in the other. I didn't have a weapon, just adrenaline and the kind of quiet rage that builds when you've been lied to with a smile for too long. Hours passed. At first I was alert, heart pounding at every creak. But eventually the stillness started to weigh on me. I don't remember closing my eyes. I don't remember drifting. But when I opened them, it was 3:42 a.m. and the front door was open. I didn't hear it, didn't see it. It was just open. The house was quiet, still, but the air felt wrong, like someone had moved through it and rearranged the molecules. I stood up, stepped out of the closet, and froze. There was a wet footprint on the entryway tile. Just one, barefoot. I followed it to the living room. Nothing. Then to the stairs. Halfway up, I heard it. Not a footstep. Not a voice. Breathing. At the top of the stairs, I saw something I will never unsee. He was standing at the end of the hallway, not moving, just staring, his head tilted slightly like he was examining a painting. He was wearing my college hoodie, the one I hadn't seen in over a year, and sweatpants that looked identical to mine, down to the bleached spot near the left knee. But it wasn't just his clothes. It was his face. It looked like mine. No, not exactly mine. More like someone tried to rebuild me from memory. The jaw was slightly wider, the eyes a bit too dark, the hair just a shade thicker. A version of me that never had doubts, never hesitated. A version of me Penny might have actually fallen for. I wanted to say something, to ask him who the hell he was. But before I could open my mouth, he smiled and walked into the bedroom, like it was his. By the time I got there, the room was empty. No sound, no movement, just Penny asleep, facing the wall, her breathing steady like nothing had happened. I stood there, shaking, staring at the empty hallway behind me, then at the bed. I didn't wake her. I couldn't. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was even supposed to be there. The next morning, I told Penny I was going out to get bagels, but I didn't even touch the car. I walked 4 blocks to the public library, one of the last places no one thinks to track you anymore. No cameras, no questions, no data sharing. Just old computers, ancient chairs, and a librarian who couldn't care less if you were hunting your wife's ghost boyfriend. I searched his name. Mason. I had no last name, no address, just a face I wasn't sure I imagined. I tried variations. Mason Boise, Mason Penny affair, even man with scar over eyebrow Idaho. Nothing. No social profiles. No arrest records. No LinkedIn. No old forums. No anything. I tried facial recognition using a photo I secretly took of one of the Polaroids before the box disappeared. The site froze 3 times before returning a generic message. No significant matches found. It was like he didn't exist. Or never did. But then I remembered something from the Slack messages I saw. A file name. Exit plan final. PDF. That was real. I saw it. So I started checking through data leak archives, old company backups, anything indexed through forgotten public shares. And finally, buried in a backup from a defunct marketing agency, I found it. It wasn't a plan to leave someone. It was a document about replacing someone. Pages of notes, diagrams, psychological profiles. The first page said, Subject, Curtis D. My name. And at the bottom, Author, M. Vale. Mason. This wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a project. And I was the experiment. By that point, I had stopped pretending this was just an affair. Something else was happening, something calculated. So I started digging. I searched for Mason everywhere. No last name, just a face, a scar, and the sound of his voice saying my name in the dark. I tried local records, arrest databases, even social media. Nothing. It was like the guy existed only in this house. No paper trail. No photos. Not even a whisper online. But I remembered the Slack messages. The ones I saw on Penny's laptop. Especially the file called Exit Plan Final. PDF. That stuck with me. So I ran a search through an old laptop I hadn't touched in years. One we both used when we first moved in. It still had her old Google Drive sync. And there it was. Not the file itself, but a cached preview. A title. A name. Project Mirror. Phase 2. Full integration. I opened the preview. Half of it was corrupted, but what I could read didn't make sense. Paragraphs about behavioral syncing, social phasing, identity fading. And one chilling sentence near the bottom. Subject no longer identifies behavioral discrepancy between self and replacement. Replacement. They weren't trying to hide an affair. They were trying to turn me into him. Or maybe turn him into me. I don't even know. But that's when it all clicked. The clothes, the gestures, the voice. They weren't copying me. They were studying me. I slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding, hands sweating. But instead of falling into panic again, something in me went still. Clear. Because finally, I knew what I was fighting. And I wasn't going to fight it alone. Please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all.